Alright, so welcome. Anybody have any good dreams to share this last week?
Uh, this week has been kind of dry for me, unfortunately.
I thought you had some like nightmarish, weird dream thing. No,
I did have a few,
you
but
don't want to share those.
um, no.
I had one with some crazy serial killer experience going on. I think it was like a mix of Dexter and like some other stuff going on with me that it happened, but it was pretty grotesque and like nightmarish, I'd say. That was kind of the only one I really recalled um, this last week, which is kind of odd for me since I don't know. I bought the new supplement because I ran out of that bentophetamine, I think it's called. Is that how you say it? You know what I'm talking about?
Not me, but
I'm not
hello.
sure.
Night.
Yeah.
Um,
You're supposed to know
what was
everything,
the
bro.
question?
Um, the supplement that I'm always raving on about of B1 bentophetamine.
B1, yeah, B1, yeah, fat
Yeah,
soluble B1.
yeah. It just hasn't really had the recall that I was used to. I took a break because I ran out of it, and then ever since then, it really hasn't really had like the same effect. But maybe I just need to build it up in my system over time because it from reading about it, they did say that it has like a problem crossing the blood-brain barrier still, like B1 naturally does, but even bentophentamine does. So maybe I just need more time with it. Um, but it's always a mix and match. It's like what supplement is really doing it because I have like so many different ones that I'm always taking, And but we had an interesting thing with one of our members, Jaliat. Um, they're like Russian, but they're really into supplements, and I was asked
Yo,
them, what's that?
they're basically a pharmacist
Yeah,
with their level of not with how much they talk about it. I think that
yeah,
they're like an undercover pharmacist.
yeah, they might be. Um, and I asked them, what supplements do they think are primary because they've used quite a bit. I have too, but I'm kind of been out of the game for quite a while, and I'm starting to get kind of back into it, I guess. Um, they said 5-HTP before bed, 100 to 300 milligrams. Um, can cause nausea for some people if they take too much, but then vitamin B6, 10 milligrams to cause more 5-HTP to convert into serotonin in the brain. And I would think that that would be like suppressing REM. So whenever I hear serotonin up, REM goes down, and then that creates like a REM rebound effect. So then you would expect dreams later in the evening, and then they do a wake back to bed, and then they use galantamine, 4 milligrams plus a GPC 300 to 400 milligrams. So those combined together essentially just more um, choline um, and acetylcholine, and then they said if you don't have access to galantamine, nicotine patch will work too, but builds tolerance faster. So they did wake back to bed with galantamine or the nicotine patch, and that seems to be very effective based on research, anyways. With galantamine, in my experience, is the same. And then they talk about using paracetam to counter the tolerance in the morning because galantamine does have like a tolerance buildup for about 24 hours. So I found that was kind of interesting comment about from them. And I might try the 5-HTP to see about causing REM rebound and then seeing if the recall goes up again. Because maybe something in my lifestyle is, um, creating like a higher serotonin rebound effect too. Sounds interesting. Um,
If you don't mind me asking, are you a strict carnivore diet guy?
no,
Because you made it sound like it. That
I, I, I do like low carb as much as I can, but
okay.
I'm usually pretty lenient on like the carbs at night sometimes, just because I get the munchies.
Night,
Um,
nighttime snacks are the best. I'm eating
yeah,
dark chocolate right now.
yeah. So
Um,
I'm constantly battling that. But
yeah.
if I had like my way without like my stomach telling me what to do, it would definitely be like low carb all the way for sure. Which means
Um,
like high protein, fats.
yeah. Um, on the topic of supplements, though, um, the Death by Coffee, he's always been struggling with dreams. So when he was over the other day, I gave him a few of my galantamines.
Oh boy, yeah.
I gave him a few of my B1s too. So
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping the next few days he gets something.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear about. Yeah, I mean,
For
glutamine by
me,
itself is pretty effective, so.
I don't know what it was, but the first day I started taking it, I'm going to sound a little crazy here, but the first day I started taking the B1, I was like at work and it was like everything, all the colors were more vivid.
Hmm.
Like the first day I started taking it, I'm like, whoa, like did I just get like dropped in first person? Um,
Interesting.
and I know that it probably has nothing to do with um the visual cortex or anything, obviously, but it was just a weird experience
Well, a lot of
for
people
me.
reference dopamine type supplements to do that same thing. So maybe the B1 had some effect on your dopamine system, and then you're just getting clear, like a clear visual representation of your experiences. So I wouldn't say that
Yeah.
that's um, not, like anytime somebody has an experience, I tend to believe them. Like that's
Yeah.
their experience. But is it like
I
chemical? Is it, psychosomatic? Is it whatever, XYZ? I don't really know. And I don't think anybody would really know full for sure, but it doesn't matter. It had an effect on you, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
and I would say it did make me feel like pretty good. Like I was in a pretty good mood.
nice. Are you
So
continually using it or?
yes, I'm using
Oh,
it
okay.
every night, unless if I randomly forget, which is kind
Oh,
of
okay.
rare.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you,
Um,
man, the glutamine, if you use that during the day, dude, it's something else for sure. It's like,
really? During
oh
the
my
day?
God, it's like um, similar to Ritalin, dude. Um, 'Cause I didn't use Ritalin until like later in life, just to kind of see what it was like, 'cause
What's it called?
I like Ritalin, like
I
people
don't know
take,
what that is.
oh,
Sounds
people take it
crazy
for
though.
like ADHD and stuff, like in the focus. A lot of kids use it now, like illegally for like focusing on their homework and stuff. Um, and Glutamine, for most of the world, it's over the counter. So I had like free access to it, and I was using it for lucid dreams. And then I'd wake up the next day and go to school because I was in college, and I noticed that like I was able to focus a lot better, like on math and stuff, things that I really have a hard time focusing on long periods of time. I was like, that's weird. And then I just started taking one like during the day, like before I go to school, and man, my focus was way up there. And I had other friends that tried it, and they said the same thing. They're like, this is they told me that it should be illegal. Like they're like, this should be illegal. That's how powerful it was for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will say when I was doing it, it did feel like I felt like I was like even in the meditation while I was having a hard time going to sleep, it did feel like I was more locked in, if you
Yeah.
will.
Some
So
some
I have to
people
try that.
I heard it, I have a friend that studies glutamine, so he has published peer-reviewed work on it, and he knows lots of people use glutamine, and one of his friends uses it for like meditation. So they use it for focusing on meditation. So I've never done that. It's just for me, my it's like that. Um, there's like a movie about the guy that takes like a medication and he just like can think really fast, about everything, and like I forget the name of the movie, but it's like that. It's like my brain is just like firing on all cylinders, for
Yeah.
it's almost manic. Like that's how intense it is, and I'm just like, oh my god. And then once it wears off, it's like, it's a huge
Yeah.
downer. So I don't use it for that reason, but um, some people do, and it's very effective and clearly effective in sleep and dreams. So, um, yeah. But I love supplements and talking about those. But the topic today we're going to talk about is dealing with something that we all kind of experience. Not everyone experiences, but a lot of people do in dreams, and also if they are going to do lucid dreaming or anything like that. And we've talked about it many times, and that's like the guardian. Um, that's what I call it. And the guardian to me is, it could be also like talked about as the Jungian shadow. Um, and I spent a little time looking up like different cultural references to the guardian, and so maybe it give people a little bit of a different perspective on from maybe their culture or things they've read about. But where I got the guardian word from was the work of Rudolf Steiner, who he's a theosophist, and he studied under Rosicrucianism and Christian mysticism, and so that term kind of came out of those uh, mystic teachings, and he called it the guardian of the threshold. And um, it's kind of like to him, it's a gatekeeper into these deeper spiritual experiences that people can have. Um, and so in Steiner's work, there's something called the lesser guardian of the threshold, and it's associated with like the shadow self, which Carl Jung talked about. And then there's also the greater guardian, which is like the higher self. And they, in that tradition, the individual engaged with these figures, which are expressions of their inner selves, in order to bypass those figures and then um, be able to access like deeper experiences about themselves. So, um, and the process, what they are talking about is like integration with um, this structure, this archetype that is presented to people during dream experiences or other experiences too. Altered experiences, and I think a good way to kind of um, better describe this experience, is through sharing maybe our own experiences with it. And and my journey into like lucid dreaming really started with the encounter of that, and later in life, um, and I always love telling the story because it's scary to a lot of people. I usually tell at night when people are, and I was in the military and people would be staying watch, which means like standing on guard for long periods of time, and there's nothing to do, and you usually are starting to fall asleep. So a good scary story would always keep people awake, and scare myself even awake. So that's when I would tell a story. But um, I'll just give like the quick version, and then maybe some other people can share their experiences with it, and then we can maybe talk about like integration and like what that means. So when I was in the military, about 2006, I had many lucid dreams up to that point in my life, but I kind of ignored it for the most part. I didn't really have a huge focus on lucid dreams or really find them that important, besides just a fun experience. And and I worked nights, so I go to work at like 6 in the morning, or sorry, 6 p.m., and then stay till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then come home and sleep during the day. And I had roommates at the time, so but most of them all work days, so I was at home by myself most of the time at night, or during the day. And so one day I was laying there and I felt somebody jump on my back, like as I'm laying flat face on my bed. And and I didn't. I thought it was one of my roommates, specifically a good friend of mine. He's kind of a trickster type person and jokes around, does things like that. And so I remember like trying to push up, and I couldn't move. And so I was like getting upset because this person, my friend, was holding me down so well. And I said, I was like, get off of me, and instead of getting off of me, they pushed down harder and then started breathing into my ear, like just breathing out into my ear. And that really pissed me off. So then I went to like swing and hit this person, my friend. Um, and as I swung my fist, there was nobody in my room. It was just dead silent. And I, um, well, I was completely shocked, I'd say, and because it was so realistic. And I got out of my bed and walked around the house, and there was not even a person in the house. And so I didn't know what happened. I was just kind of blown away by the whole experience. So um, I didn't want to go back into that room because it freaked me out so much. So I slept on the couch for the rest of the day and even a couple days after. And then I finally, I was tired of sleeping on the couch because it was uncomfortable. And I was like, this is my house. I should probably be able to sleep in my bed. And so I went and slept back in my bed. And then I had another experience. And this experience, I heard people talking downstairs. So I lived on the third floor, and I could hear these people talking downstairs. And they were having some kind of conversation. And and then I realized one of them was a friend that wasn't there. He was deployed in the Middle East. And as I realized that, everyone stopped talking immediately. And had this feeling of like dread just fill my body. And and then in my mind, I have this vision of what looks like a blue orb coming up my stairs into my room. And then I black out. I can't remember anything after that. And I woke up from that dream and immediately went back down into the couch and slept on the couch for a few more nights. And then um, finally decided to go back to the room again. And fell asleep there. And this time, um, my head was like facing the door. And I woke up and I couldn't move again. And I look at the door and the door opens up slowly. And I'm just kind of paralyzed. I can't do anything about it. And the fear is just intense at this point. And then a figure floats into my room, like doesn't touch the ground, and it looks exactly like death, like the Grim Reaper, without like his weapon. And I'm just like, what is happening? And um, and it floats over to me, and I'm just absolutely like losing my mind. And then I scream out like, is the only thing I could think of was like, Lord Jesus, help me, and because people tell you like if you see a demon or whatever, just shout out Jesus, and it'll work. And the thing just started laughing at me and picked me up off of my bed, and started beating the shit out of me against the wall, just beating me. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And then I wake up and I'm back in bed. And I was like, okay, F this room. I'm not dealing with this shit. So I went back down again to the couch, stayed a while there, a few nights more. Finally, it was like I couldn't sleep anymore. I was just dragging at work, felt like death myself. And I was like, you know what? Like, there's got to be somebody else out there. Like, I don't know what this is, but somebody's got to help me. So I went online and I typed in, like the search at the time, whatever I could come up with that described my dream experience. And sure enough, like there's a group of people on some weird website, and they all were talking about the guardian of the threshold, and I was like, what is this? Um, and I was just reading it. And I was like, this sounds so much like my experience. And they were saying you have to face it. You cannot run away from this thing. And I was like, you know what? Like, whatever. And they were also talking about like, oh, once you face it, then you can enter all these, deeper spiritual aspects of yourself, and like, you know, and on and on. And I was like, I do not care about all that. I had no interest. I just wanted to go to sleep and not be attacked by anything. And so then I finally decided, I'll listen to these people and try it out. So I went to sleep, and this time I had it in my mind that I was going to attack this thing, and I was going to, just beat the shit out of it. Like, that was the only thing I could think of. And so I laid down, and this time when I woke up, I was laying on the floor, and I was like, something is different. Like, clearly I'm dreaming. And then I saw my door open, and the same figure came into my door. It looked like death. And this time I stood up and I ran at it, and it immediately, it felt like it recognized that I had changed my perspective and was now running at it versus it attacking me. And it was trying to get away, and I grabbed the only thing I could think of, which was its cloak, and I started eating it. And um, and I ate it, and it was screaming, and eventually I ate the whole entire thing up, and then it was silent, and um, and I was like, wow, that was weird. And then I see this like glow coming down my stairway, like this weird glow effect. And so I walk down the stairs, and I enter into this 19 like 20s 1930s hotel stairway, and had marble finish walls, and like brass railing, and like a brass water fountain even. And I was just amazed by how realistic everything was. Like, I could touch the walls and it felt like granite, and I even tasted the walls, and it was like that cold stone taste. And I tasted the water and washed the water around my hand from the water fountain. And I was like, wow, this is the most realistic dream I've ever had. This is bizarre. And then walked down into the hotel lobby, and there's a bunch of people down there like eating dinner. It was nighttime, and they all just stopped and looked at me, as I was like walking down in my underwear, as they're all like dressed nicely. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, this is the most bizarre thing ever. And then eventually I woke up from that, and I was just shocked at like this crazy experience that I've had. And then I never had that thing come back into my room after that point, um, in that house or anything like that. And the funny, not funny, but the strangest part about, I mean, to me, the whole strangest part is that the previous owners in that house, when I finally was leaving, I was moving to a different station, duty station, and my next door neighbor came out, and he's like, hey, I saw you're leaving. I was like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, the last owners in that house, they seemed really nice when they moved in, but then they went crazy and tried to burn it down. And I was like, what? And I was like, that's bizarre. And years later, I asked my roommates, I was like, hey, you guys have any weird things happen in that house or anything? And one of them started telling me the story about very similar experience where, they were laying in bed, and this whole experience took place with them. And and it really got me thinking about um, later in life, like the divide between waking and dreaming, and how like that many times in my life I felt that dreadful feeling that I still feel in dreams when I encounter this thing, right? Um, and I've also encountered it when I'm awake, that same feeling. And it makes me think that like the lines between dreams and waking reality are actually very thin, but we have such a perspective on waking life that we don't really pay attention to it, or we kind of ignore it until we can't anymore. Um, And there is a recent video of surprisingly an ex-Navy SEAL talking about a similar experience that happened to him. And it was kind of surprising to me because this person is he's faced a lot of fears in his life, death, um, and these very traumatic type experiences that they have going through training things. And this person was just equally as terrified as I was, while they're awake. And I've felt that terror before, when engaged with something unseen or even seen in these dream experiences, and then having to kind of overcome it in our own way. So the in the dream experience they had, you could I'm sure some of us could pick up some elements of um, the process of sleep paralysis, different stages of sleep and experiences that can occur during those experiences, as well as like lucidity in that experience, and then engaging with the shadow figure. But that's my experience with it, and I've had many experiences since then. It kind of transforms and stuff like that, but I'd say that was like the start of my journey. And I would be interested to hear if other people's personal experiences, if they're willing to share.
Yeah. So I that was an awesome story. And I never get tired of hearing it. It's such a cool story. I can't help but imagine like I know it was like serious for you at the time, and it was probably like terrifying because I've gone through stuff like that too. But whenever you say that you grabbed his cloak and he started screaming, I can't help but think of like a stylized cartoon of like a Grim Reaper trying to get away from you, and you're just like, get over here.
Yeah, just
And
eating it.
he's just screaming as you're eating his bones.
Well, I
But
mean, it's not funny, but I found another person on the internet that did the same thing, and they didn't know why they did it either. They ended up eating this thing too, and I've never understood like why would I eat that thing. But um, yeah, it was odd, I'd say.
um, uh, before I tell my story, I just want to mention to everybody who is new here, this is currently being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube for whoever opens up and decides to share.
Yeah,
Just so you guys know. But my experience, it's fairly basic as things go. I woke up from a couple of dreams every now and then, and I would see like intense like shadow figures like all around me, and like I got the feeling of like vertigo and being pulled from my body, and I felt like really threatened by all of it. And then eventually I quote unquote woke up. So and I had another experience where I could see the room clearly but I was frozen, and I went from my side to my back, and at the end of my bed, it's like I had a wider field of view as well, and I could see in the dark. But at the foot of my bed, there was like this weird vibrating silhouette, and I didn't really feel threatened, but it was kind of freaky at the time.
mm,
And as far as like my guardian experiences go, I don't have too many other than, just suffering from general nightmares, like
yeah,
night terrors and stuff, but it's not really sleep paralysis or anything sort of like that. But I will say I don't really suffer from nightmares anymore, and I feel fundamentally transformed from that experience. I'm glad I went through what I did, even though at the time I was so scared. Every night I would keep myself up at night because I just didn't want to go to sleep
mm,
and face whatever I had to face. But eventually I locked in and like faced my fears, and after a few times of dealing with these night terrors, it all went away.
hmm,
Like I fought back and it just stopped, and I felt
Yeah, I
empowered.
think
And I still get like um dopamine from that when I think about it. It's like, damn, I went through that and I got through it. I'm not really afraid anymore.
yeah. I definitely have a fear associated with it still. Like, I try my best, like in a lucid state, if that um, embodiment of whatever it is, whatever you want to call that, comes forward, I can always feel it. and the intensity's there. And I try to hold my ground. Like it's like, okay, I know it's what it's trying to do, you know? Um, but it's always like I'm on the verge of like total collapse, you know, when I'm just like trying to hold space. And maybe it's I'm not
You-
aggressive to it. What were you trying to say, Wizard? Are you trying to say something?
may I add stuff in?
Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What you encountered was a ghost,
Okay.
and you did eat it. You killed it, which is why it didn't come back. But you absorbed it into yourself.
Mm.
You can, if it is bothering you, you can let it go. Just don't let it go back in that house. You let it go somewhere else, it will dissipate.
Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, in other traditions like South American shamanism, um, they call them darts. So, oddly enough, they, when asked how they store spirits, they don't call them ghosts, but they call them spirits. How do they store their spirits, or how do they use their spirits? They say they store them in their stomach. They eat them and store them in the phlegm in their stomach, and then they bring them up, and then they can use them for protection, or they can shoot them out uh, as like a weapon towards other spirits or shamans and things like that. So there is some weird, not weird, but some association to the stomach and them eating them, which is, something that I did. Um, so I can see where, um, that would make sense,
That,
definitely in that
that
tradition.
sounds neat. I've never tried, though I've fed myself to things
Oh,
to get through their shielding. If something eats you, you're inside of them, and they no longer have protection versus you.
mm, interesting. Hmm.
So I use this. It's a Trojan horse type method
Mm,
to get into powerful beings that I just can't fight my way into in any other way.
okay. Well, hopefully that thing is not eating me from the inside out then.
No, it's not that powerful. Since it was screaming when you were eating it, it really didn't want to be eaten.
Oh, okay.
Um, their ghosts are defined as human dead.
Oh, okay.
Spirits, on the other hand, are all types of other things. The whole range of things. But ghosts are not spirits, and spirits are not ghosts.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we would talk about some of the other traditions associated with these encounters. And the I think many different people have different ways of dealing with these things that they've kind of um, come up with over time. Some of them are consistent. Like in Hinduism, they talk about gatekeepers of the sacred temples, and oftentimes you'll see like these gatekeepers outside the temples and like uh, in their carvings and things like that. Um, and
Yes, yes, there are gatekeepers.
yeah, and they
What
they
what you
associate.
encountered wasn't a gatekeeper.
Oh, okay. Well, from they call them like they associate them with the karma, right, and personal development and entities based on like um, like personal development of spirits, I guess, or something like that. Hard to really describe, but like states of the individual versus like external things. Um, and Tibetan Buddhism, they also talk about um, the wrathful, wrathful deities that are associated with Bardo. And there's a few of us in this community that have talked about guardian encounters in Bardo or void states. I know not to put Snazzy on the spot there, but a lot of his guardian encounters were associated with like the void. And
Okay.
if he wants to talk about that, he can. Um,
Um, Something I would like to mention real quick about the Bardo state. those quote unquote like wrathful deities aren't always there for your downfall. They're actually there to help you and help you see. At least that's what I've read. Um, and
Yes, guardians are there to help you.
but
Yeah, yeah.
they come across as threatening. I mean, if you look at like one of the incantations of or one of the avatars of Buddha. One of his avatars is Vajrapani, and Vajrapani is considered like a wrathful bodhisattva, which is like an extension of Buddha,
Mm,
and he is the extension of his anger.
I
But
see.
because he's still Buddha, because he's still part like of Buddha, he still can't do like harm out of malice. It's more of protection. So like, and if you look up depictions, he looks terrifying. I mean, there's like often there's like skulls around his waist, or like he's holding like a dagger and he's in like a kata stance,
Mm,
like a low kata stance. I forgot the name of it, but his hand is on his stomach. He's in a lower stance, whereas he's kind of like saddling on a horse almost. And it's just so interesting to me that their culture is beautiful in the sense that yes, this guy looks like freaky and like terrifying, and he might even be confused with what some Christians would call a demon,
right.
upon seeing it. But you understand and you look and you see that this guardian isn't actually there for your downfall. It's there to help you, and it just comes across as wrathful and quote unquote evil, even though it's not.
Right. Yeah, and that's how
And
I tend to look at these things more over the years. It's not like, sure they may be associated with some type of um, thing, entity or something associated with my room or something, and we've talked about this before. Like but the experience I'm having is it's a experience between myself and something else, right? Some effect causing an experience internally into me. So regardless of how ever it presents itself externally, internally it's expressing itself based on my associations, right, and my experience. So then I deal with it through that, which is how you're describing, like thinking of it as more of um, a personal um, mirror into myself and how I can deal with these things inside myself in order to um, maybe you could say protect myself or change myself or dig deeper into myself versus like being scared or associated externally as like something out of my control or something unknown that there's no solution to, besides hope, um, you know, which is I think what you're kind of getting at is like um, just seeing it a different perspective
mhm.
from
I
that
mean,
way.
like in a way, like if you look at and you kind of like that's what I tended to do in my nightmares. I resonated like with the idea of like Vajrapani. Like I had looked into that, and I was like, wow, that's like inspiring to me. That something that looks so malevolent is actually kind of a good guy, and it helped me get past my nightmares in the sense that like, well, if I can in a way like manifest this sort of confident, almost wrathful energy to scare away like these negative dream entities, then it seemed to have worked. I mean, at least for me, it did. That's what happened in my mindscape in my dreams. I had this weird, creepy, large shadow entity that was probably about 7 foot tall. He had backed me into a corner, and he had horns and bright red eyes, and I couldn't see anything. He was like part mist. He was like just like a black mist, and it was very shadowy and looked very malevolent. And in that moment of being quite literally in a rock and a hard place, where I was backed into a corner, I just kind of had a brief moment of lucidity, And I was like, why am I even scared of this? And as he took a step forward, so did I, and I
Mm.
just kind of like beat my chest a little bit. And after that, I woke up and I felt like $1,000,000. It was like my
Mm.
first time actually facing something like that, and I felt so empowered that it just kind of had a domino effect, you know, like you get like one win and then the next win is almost guaranteed, it completely changed my perspective at the time because I was
Yeah.
living in fear, and now at this point I was living in empowerment. And it's just the Vajrapani tale has
Oh, yeah.
always very much resonated with me, and I'm very interested in it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, externally, um, a lot of my life, I think, and I think many people that are lucid dreamers or into things that just drawn to things that we're all drawn to, kind of experience maybe similar things where they have this weird dynamic with like the um, with this fear, right? Um, and so like a good portion of my life, I was scared of the dark. Really, I kind of had that same um, dreadful feeling of that I get in lucid dreams with darkness, or sometimes I just get those creepy vibes of like something's watching me. And and just recently watching this video of this ex Navy SEAL, or he's a Navy SEAL, I guess, talk about the same exact feeling for him, and this dude is like, uh, he's faced some real stuff, and um, just terror filled this guy, and also like the people he's with in this house, and I had that same feeling like in a childhood house when I grew up, and I still get it sometimes, but like I did what you came to the conclusion of, essentially, is like I've lived my entire life with this feeling of fear associated with this feeling, right? This thing that comes up, this dreadful thing. And it's never done anything to me. It's never had the effect that I think it's going to have, even if I can just sit with it, which is very challenging. And so I realized at that point, it's like, I have nothing to fear. It's more like, to me, it's more like something there's an alarm bell going off in my brain. Something is there. It's like there's something here. There's some effect taking place. I don't know what it is, you know, and I'm trying to understand it. Versus like, hey, you should be fearful of this thing, Like the awareness started to appear that take a moment, and assess the situation versus just react emotionally to this thing. So, and that um, transformed my experience. Instead of like getting fearful of something when I feel it now, even externally, like when I'm awake, um, I take a moment back and I just sit with it and like try to understand what my body is actually responding to versus just like um, react to it, in a state of fear. So, and I mean, that goes a long ways, right? Like you were saying, it's like it transforms how you see, how you work with fear in your life, uh, PTSD and things like that. So, does anybody else have
Um,
any experiences to share? Or go ahead, Knight.
the last thing I'll say to bounce off of what you just said, I tend to the way that my fear response happens now is I feel the initial like dread, I'll say, and then it just kind of something just flips, and I just feel um I have a fight response now. I feel like the wrathfulness like welling inside me, and it's like I get like a powerful stance, that type of thing. I just like try and make myself bigger like a threatened animal, and
Yeah.
that tends to help me in my dream.
Hmm.
Um that's my current fear response, but I would be interested in changing it into more of a mindful response rather than, an almost anger response.
Hmm. Yeah. And I told a story about my Buddhist teacher in college. So I'll say it again real quick. years later after this experience, I kept having encounters with this different things that brought up the same feeling. Um, it was the feeling of dread, but then the visuals were different. It was never that cloaked figure again. It would be different things. And I would do the same thing. I would attack this whatever it was, as quick as I possibly could to get rid of it. And I was taking a Buddhist class at the time, and the teacher was I told him about my experiences, and he said, "Why don't you just sit down and listen to it? Like have a conversation with it versus just like go out and attack this thing." And I was like, "Okay, worth a try." So, of course, I had a lucid dream, and I had that same feeling that that thing was coming, whatever it was. And I look down this hallway, and it's a zombie, and it's walking towards me. And instead of running away this time, I just let it do its thing. I bowed my head down to it, and it was like one of those brain-eating zombies that I'm always scared of. And it crunched in my head, and then it stopped. It was silent, and I looked up, and I said, "Hey, sit down with me." And so it sat down. And I go, "What do what's going on here? What's your deal?" And it said, "I'm unsatisfied." And I go, "Unsatisfied of what?" It said, "I'm unsatisfied." And I was like, "Okay." And then there was another zombie that appeared down the hallway. And I stood up and I said, "Hey, sit down with us." And so it did. And those two zombies, they took wires out from their stomach and then exchanged them between each other. And as they did that, they merged into each other, and then they merged into me. And I woke up. And I was like, "What the hell was that?" I didn't really, I couldn't comprehend exactly what happened, but I can tell you that I woke up and I felt great. I felt like some transformation had occurred. And I also realized that like these, oh, and the zombie, I forgot to say, the zombie changed its looks, and it was me. It was a reflection of me. So, I upon waking, I realized that these things are more likely parts of me being expressed, and that they're like stuck in a loop of unsatisfied, uh, you know, like stuck in some type of a loop where they're not getting what they want, and they're like leftovers. And so, um, there's some type of reintegration effect that happened there with me listening to it, trying to just hear it, what it wanted, versus attacking it, and also that realization that these things are um, possibly part of myself versus like an external thing. So I think that was
That
big for me.
not to put anybody on the spot, but that reminds me a lot of sometimes what Lamb of Your God says, where he says like he can feel some of the aspects of himself feeling dissatisfied
Mm.
at certain things, or so like perhaps it's like it's just a theory. I don't know anything, but perhaps it's like some of your neural processes were unsatisfied and it just kind of sorted itself out after that dream. Maybe, I mean, did you
Right.
feel better after the dream?
Yeah, it felt great. Like um, some weird tied up ideas of my dad came up suddenly. I was like thinking about forgiveness with him. Just these weird, you know, underlying pieces of myself that I really didn't
Oh,
pay
there we go.
attention to came up. Yeah, go ahead, Lamb.
I was gonna chime in. I forgot
Oh
what I was
yeah,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
though.
Oh, we were talking
I
about
forgot what I was gonna say.
kind
But
of these leftover
what
things.
was yeah? Knight had said something about what were you saying just now?
I said his zombies that were dissatisfied reminded me of the aspects of yourself that are dissatisfied. Like for example, the reminder of brushing your teeth. You had
Yeah,
mentioned that to me, and that
that's a
reminded
funny.
me. Yeah, that
That's a funny
reminded me.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Wizard was talking about if you watch zombie movies, the others will show up as zombies. To get nicer beings, you need to put these nicer images into your memory. And I mean, I
Cool.
agree with that. I think that our mind uses images that that are presented to us to convey messages, you know. And the zombies is definitely like
And
a cultural
Association.
message that we use to.
the others can only communicate with us with whatever we have already stored in our mind.
Mm,
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I like it. Thank you for mentioning that specifically.
yeah.
So if you
Whether
want
whether it
nicer
be
things to
ourselves
show
or
up,
anything
you
else,
have to
you can only know what you know.
store them in your mind.
I mean that makes sense. Yeah. Um, you know, I don't watch a lot of zombie movies, I'll tell you that, but zombies do still come up to me. And also like the interesting part in trying to understand zombies movies is they keep getting made over and over again. And and I think it's culturally like we're identifying this the others, right? The pieces you could say they're pieces of ourselves that are left over, tied up inside of our psyches. Um, deeper aspects of ourselves tied up. So, you know, maybe we're trying to culturally see those things and work with them, and instead of just letting them like exist without us not knowing them, you know. Anyways,
Not fighting them is useful too.
yeah,
Talking with them.
yeah, it seems that was a very effective method. Um, for me, sometimes these things come up and you can't talk to them. They're not interested in communicating, which is interesting too, right?
I think Snazzy had
So
talked about that too. Sometimes it's not the right time, or you got to work through some emotions first.
Yeah.
if they don't talk, I tend to just follow them,
Mm,
see where they go.
okay. It's a good perspective. Try it out.
Yep, be stubborn and let them know you ain't going anywhere.
The other part of this whole thing is like, and we've talked about it in different ways, is the after effect of working with these things. And some of these cross-cultural descriptions also imply these experiences and what happens after you encounter them and work with them. Um, we've talked about like the deeper aspects of dream states and things like that. And these encounters seem to happen um, right, essentially in hypnagogia or close to that, right when you're starting to fall asleep. And for whatever reason, the structure of sleep behavior is that we tend to have nightmares early on in our sleep versus later on, and so our brains are literally structured in order to have these experiences um, before having like the more pleasant and deeper experiences that we can have. Um, and in these cross-cultural references, they say like you have to encounter these things in order to enter into um, deeper and more pleasant experiences because they literally are guarding the entrance to those things. So, and we can find this in like artwork and stuff like that, like religious artwork. Um, one thing, you know, like in Christian or Catholic not temples, churches, we find the same thing outside, right? The um, the guardians outside the temple guarding the entrance, um, you know, and so it's definitely a cross cultural experience that people have with this thing, and something kind of universal, you know. Does anybody else have any of these experiences to share or anything? I was hoping Snazzy would share a little bit of his. They're pretty good, but if not, that he might be away.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. It's up to you, man.
I wanted to talk about my guardian, but I feel like I talk about him a lot. But
Well, that's the topic of today's episode, dude. Go for it.
Well, how's he doing? Do you have an update or still looking?
still looking for him. Still looking. Um, Let me just say, for some people, maybe he wasn't listening in the last sessions. Vordis told me about that he took a bite out of a cloak from a monster or something, and that gave me an idea to like go up to my guardian next time I see him and like, take a bite out of him. I was like so confident about that. When I took a bite, like my mouth went full of cockroaches and bugs and gross green fluid, and I was like, I tried to just keep going, and like the body of my guardian was super hairy and it was disgusting, but I was like forcing myself to do it and like just get rid of him. And he started laughing out of nowhere, and he was like, "Oh, you really love to take a bite out of me." And he just like, I drew some pictures of him, just put his both hands on his chest and like opened the skin of his chest, and I could see his ribs. I was just scared in the dream, and I was like, "Oh no, I won't take a bite out of him ever again. That was a bad idea." And for some time, I feel like I saw my guardian even before the server. Like, if Fortis remembers, or some of y'all talk about a hallway that I was in a series of dreams that has some shadow figure in the end of that hallway, red crimson colored hallway, and he was just like playing a piano.
Hmm.
Um, every dream I saw him and tried to like reach out to him. I just got my vision got glitched out, and I was just woke up suddenly. And last time I saw that figure was that, yeah, let me just tell you that that figure has a lot of chains attached to its body, and like a lot. And when I like reached out to him, I realized I could see his face, and I realized that's me. That's
Hmm.
just me. And those chains are like my mistakes, my beliefs, some of things I did and I regret doing. And he just started to like melting, and after that those chains started to get on attached to him. And right now, and this last week, I started to think maybe that figure actually came back in a different form of my guardian, because my guardian has a lot of forms, like 3 forms, and the one that stays the same that was that hairy one-eyed creature, because like that drawing I drew of him like it stayed in my mind. And after a while, the idea of my guardian become a idea of he's live in the dark, he's lives in the darkness of a void or a place like that. And I started to think about it as something like that. I didn't only saw him in dark places. I even like think of the void in a dream, and he just appeared out of nowhere. Everything becomes darker and darker. Like it's like when he comes and appears, the darkness also comes with him.
Hmm.
And for some of y'all who don't know, in the war in here, I felt really depressed and bad, and I went into the void, and he wasn't there, and I waited for some moment. I like was waiting for him to reach out to me again and like beat the shit out of me, like every time I saw him. And I was waiting for him, and he wasn't there. And I like tried to yell guardian and again called his name, and I didn't see him. um, and after that I never seen him again. And as Lamb said, Lamb once told me, once he's no I mean Lamb asked me, if he's gone, would you like miss him? And I was like, hell no, I just want to get rid of this creature. And now that he's gone, like I hear like cool stories from so many people now that they like face their guardian or something, and their guardian like have some like good ending, like it was a good ending for them, but my guardian just disappeared and went missing, and I never saw him again.
Mm.
And every time I went to Void again, I just call out his name just for a little like hope in my heart that I would see him again. I don't know why I want to see him, even I hated him, but I don't know. I started to feel like he didn't want to always attack me. He wanted to make me grow,
Mm.
and
For that,
that's it.
for for your void, I'd go there
Mm.
again and think about your eyes. And then you can adjust your eyes until you can see there. You can
Mm.
adjust the frequency you're seeing on.
Mm.
You go one way on the spectrum, and if you don't get any light that way, you go the other way on the spectrum. You'll find a spot where you can see. Do that,
So
and then you look around your void and see what's there.
Yeah, maybe you'll
okay,
see it then.
I might have to try that. Okay.
I would I would say, Snazzy, that the my story about kind of like engaging with this thing and then like some type of resolution take place. I wouldn't say that is resolution to me either. I continue to have those experiences, but it changed form for all my life. I think I'll have it forever. And it comes and goes, changes shapes, changes forms, but it has the same feeling to me as the original being. And and in and I do think of it in the same way that you do, as like a encounter with myself, like pieces of myself that I'm trying to reintegrate into who I am as a person. Um, and I think known or not known, sorry, Lamb. I think Lamb is for me the one that resonates the most to these things, like internal aspects of ourself, kind of fragmented. I think of it as like a hard drive fragmented, and you're like defragging a hard drive like you used to, so that everything makes sense again, and like the information is clear. Um,
Can you elaborate specifically on what you mean as to reintegrate yourself? Like, what exactly does that mean
like I think,
in
um,
simple terms?
yeah, I think like some of these ideas, beliefs and ideas and especially negative aspects of ourself are kind of like left over in our psyche as like living entities, right? You can call them like tulpas inside of us, right? And that they um, can manifest in different ways, and that if you reintegrate them, they they no longer have their individual existence. They're one of like they're part of the whole again. It would be similar to like a person um, being so full of themselves that they think that no one else exists in the world around them, so they're very self-centered and nobody can work with them, and they seem very angry because everything happens to them. It's not happening to everybody around them. And then suddenly they become aware that there's all this other stuff happening, and they're not the center of reality, right? And then they're reintegrated into society as like part of the whole. And I think that same thing is happening internally into us, where our reality is us, and then us engaging with um, these aspects of ourselves, bring awareness to them, and then reintegrate them into the whole of us, versus like being left over, um, stuck uh, ideas, entities living their life the way they are. So I mean, and
I think
that
you
just
said
goes
it
to
pretty
like
well.
shadow work with Jung, right? That's kind of his perspective. What were you saying, Liam? Sorry.
I think you articulated that pretty well.
Oh, thanks. not to say that that is the end all to it all, but I think that was one way to work with it versus like
Yeah, just you know,
others.
one mode, one method, or one model, as we talked about.
Yeah. And I'll share a short dream experience that kind of I think brought this to home for me is I have awareness suddenly and I'm in my room and there's this lady, she shows up and she's like radiates gold. And so I trust her. I think, oh, this lady like knows some stuff. And she takes me to a place that is outside of this invisible barrier and then I'm dropped there and it's a tunnel and there's all these people just in this tunnel and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, death. And but they're just packed in this tunnel. And I look at these people and they're all just gray and dead looking, like they've been there for a long time. And so it reminded me of purgatory, right? They're just hanging out. And I look around and I can't even move. There's so many people. And I realize um, there's I'm being some pieces of me, like my essence, is being sucked into these people. They want to grab onto me, like they want my life. And so I tried to like get out of there as best I can. I started flying and kicking as hard as I could just to get out of there. And eventually I got out, and as soon as I got out of there, I woke up like in a panic and had all these like had like a freaking mental breakdown essentially after that, and just anxiety. And many times, many years, I've thought about that, and then um, and it came back to the same thing. There's purgatory itself is a symbolic representation of that same thing to me, where there's aspects of ourselves not reintegrated into the whole that are waiting for the integration to occur, right? Waiting for the savior to come down and save them so that they can be reintegrated into the whole, right? Brought into the light versus staying around and just, in this mindless state. And I think that is like,
Fighting for the right to exist.
yeah, they don't, maybe they don't even have like an understanding what it means to exist, but they just are, and it's like a vibration just reverberating. And so like ending that vibration um, or breaking that cycle, I think reintegrates them into the whole, and then essentially they're um, now they're part of the one, right? The whole thing, which is you in this perspective. So, I think a lot of these myths and stories um, in religious texts are really talking about like the human experience, the psyche, and how to work with those things.
We're not looking up, we're looking in.
Right.
Before you go on to the next subject,
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
self-integration is the first step.
Oh, okay.
Beyond that, people lose parts of themselves to their environment, and things take pieces of you.
I can see that.
Reversing that is called soul retrieval. This is one of the things I do.
Oh, okay.
I go out and find the pieces of the person and either steal them back or buy them back and reattach them to the person.
Okay.
These parts come with memories and skills and other things that you lost. They can be retrieved.
Interesting. Definitely could see the relationship there.
One thing I would also like to mention that is in relation to what you just said, like the purgatory thing. I talk to a lot of people like in my life about lucid dreaming, and some of them are receptive to it, some of them don't care. But the ones that are receptive to it, who are interested, I always tell them like yeah, it's awesome and you can do whatever you want, but just keep in mind that when you start going on this path, you're not going to be comfortable every dream. You're going to be like uncomfortable too. from like, actually diving deep into your subconscious, and that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, like, by practicing just the act of practicing like lucid dreaming, like I would say probably increases your chances of having a sleep paralysis by 1,000%. Like you're gonna have it at some point. You're just gonna have it at some point.
Yeah.
I tell that to people too. I mean, I think people actively looking for it are more prepared. Like in my case, I wasn't really, and I almost went insane. But luckily, I had enough support groups to help figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, and like when I was young, and I was 13 or 12, like when I first started researching lucid dream, nobody talked about like sleep paralysis at all. It was like, it was just kind of in the background, like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can spawn planets and destroy them and at your will, and everybody forgets to mention the shadow demon that's in your corner, or waking up and not being able to move, and
You're not supposed to talk about him.
Yeah.
seeing Nicolas Cage in a clown suit.
There you go. That'd freak me out.
I get sleep paralysis, but I get it on the way out.
Oh, okay.
I don't get it
Yeah.
on the way in.
Yeah. It's very
You never get it
uncomfortable.
on the way in, just the way out.
Yeah.
My usually either or. I mean, it's just give or take. Depends on the circumstance.
Lillian wrote, same with meditation, yeah. And a lot of people don't talk about meditation having, I mean, when you're talking about dreams and dream states or altered states, meditation, they're all the same, just different method to get to the same place. And so, yeah, a lot of meditators don't talk about like the downside to meditation, which is the same thing, right? Like encountering um, paralysis and anxiety,
Hypnagogia,
terror,
auditory hypnagogia, that freaks a
losing
lot
your
of people
mind.
out.
Like
Um,
Lamb said, you can have like some serious trouble going through some of these experiences if you're alone. You don't have a support group that hasn't gone through the same thing as you to step on and say, hey, what's going on here? You know.
I
Absolutely.
read
Sorry,
I
I don't know
read
if
a
you can
thing.
hear me.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. I was just gonna say, like, real quick, like, I had read online at one point, and I didn't believe it. That was because I was like an avid meditator, like growing up, ever since I was 12 and 13, because I was fascinated by the idea of, lucid dreaming and astral projection. So it was like an obsession of mine growing up. But and I still meditate a lot to this day. But I read this and I never believed it, but somebody said that in some cases meditation can amplify your feelings of like depression or negative feelings. I'm like, there's no way that's true. And then like I think about it more and more, and it's like, well, I mean, they're kind of right, because if somebody experiences, for example, auditory hypnagogia, and they, like, for me, I have people, like, I have what sounds like footsteps like approaching me in auditory hypnagogia, and I hear
Oh,
my
yeah.
door slam and open, and I have a very creaky floor. I hear that too, and it's like somebody's getting closer and closer and closer. And if I didn't know about that beforehand, then that would freak me out. And I've even had like what sounds like somebody breathing on me,
Mm-hmm.
like in my hypnagogia, in
Oh,
a
yeah.
deep meditation. It's not even like a lucid dream. It's just like a deep meditation. And if I'm not prepared for that, and I don't have the mental power to ignore it, and then I cut it off there, that's going to freak me out even more, because I'm
Yeah.
going to be like, oh my God, there's a ghost in my house. And, it was trying to assault me while I was sleeping or meditating. Like,
Yeah.
It's not a ghost. It's not a ghost.
I know. I'm saying it's my auditory hypnagogia.
No, it's not. There are beings in our homes. I
Well,
call them
yeah,
beneficial house spirits.
Oh, okay.
I was simply talking from my experience of meditation. That's all.
Yes, I know, But when you get into a deep enough meditation, you can interact with them.
Yeah.
You can hear them.
Wizard Lillian wanted to say something, I think. I'm not sure if I'm
sorry,
saying your name
I don't
right.
know if you guys could hear me at all.
Yes.
My mic. For some reason, it's not quite.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you anyways.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're coming in clear.
Here we go. Okay. No, I was just gonna say that I agree. When I started doing meditation, I had no idea. Like I thought, I know I did it to help with like my anxiety and depression. Had no idea that it would, for a short time, amplify those things. And talking with other people who were going through it, I eventually got through that part. But if I had known that going in, if I had been more prepared, I don't know that I still would have done it. Maybe I probably would have. But
yeah, it makes you think outside of the box, and you have some epiphanies that could even amplify your anxiety or depression. Like for me, like I won't go into detail, but like I had thoughts about like my childhood and in deep meditation, and I made connections that weren't there in regular states of consciousness, and that for a while amplified things, but eventually I healed from it. So, but like it's stuff like that. Like it's so interesting to me how like altered states of consciousness work, and unfortunately not a lot of people talk about the downsides of meditation in that sense. It's always, rainbows and,
yeah.
sunshine.
I tend to
But
think
it
of
makes
it
us
as
stronger.
a metaphor of like a pond, like after a while the sediment is on the bottom, and then if you step into it and you start moving around, then all that sediment starts coming up, and all those um, regardless, like the auditory, visual, all that physical experience of something coming to you to encounter, that's very real. But then these unconscious kind of mental anxieties that can appear um, into you as well, they aren't fully realized because they're part of your psyche, like they're who you are, right? So you're changing as you're bringing all this stuff up. Like I said, the positive side of me working with those zombies was when I woke up, I had all these positive experiences. But the same thing could happen in the opposite, where you wake up and you feel depressed or dreadful, and you don't fully understand why. So there's definitely a positive, negative side to all this, like you guys were saying.
If you are like mentally prepared for it, and I think what you said about the sediment, like stirring up and getting like dirt everywhere in the ocean and stuff, that's the perfect analogy. It reminds me a lot of how our body works with our like lymphatic system. How like you get the blood flowing, you have to get the blood flowing, and that's when it allows your body to increase the detoxification of whatever's ailing you. And it's very similar to that in meditation, where it's like, if this trauma is sitting in the back of your subconscious, and it's just kind of sitting there waiting, watching, and it's affecting you, and you don't really realize how it's affecting you. And when you meditate, you're bringing and stirring up all of those emotions. What eventually happens is, yeah, it gets really bad. You start thinking about it. You're like, damn, I did all those things, or this happened to me, or I'm the victim, et cetera, et cetera. And from it being stirred up and that sediment being all around you, you can eventually heal from it. You're detoxifying that emotion by it being active again. It's bad in the moment, but when it's active and it's around you, your conscious and subconscious mind can both deal with it. It's not just like a single battle anymore.
Right.
It's both your minds working together to nip it in the bud.
Yeah, you're forcing. It's kind of holding up a mirror to the parts of yourself that you were ignoring.
Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. Well, we're running out of time here, guys, but it was and everyone, it was a great experience to hear your guys' experience, and thanks for listening and allowing me to share mine. And hopefully everyone got something out of it. I won't be on any longer, but if you want to stay around and chat with everyone else, that is great. And if you have any topics for the next week that you want to discuss, or something close to your heart, please share it with any of the like Knight or myself, and we can set that up for next week. Even if you want to like be the primary speaker or whatever, that's cool too. So, but it was good to have everyone here, and I look forward to the next talk.
See you later, words.
See ya.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
See
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
later.